Are you a business owner who has a remote team? Or maybe you don't have a remote team just yet, but you want to build your team, your dream team, but you just don't know how to manage it all yet. Well, in this video, stick around to the end for me to tell you all of the best tips to make sure that your team works really strongly together, they are communicative, and all of the things you would want from your dream team. All right, the very first thing you need to make sure you do is to really set clear expectations. Clear is key in this case. So when you tell them what your expectations are and what your goals are, then they can align with that better. If you just kind of give them their tasks, they won't really understand what they're supposed to do or how they fit into your company. So you really want to make sure you lay out what is expected of them and what the goals are for the company so that it helps them figure out where they fit in your team. And why? Because it's really easy, especially for new members, to feel kind of disconnected from everywhere else, especially being remote. So you really want to make sure that you have that communication with them from the beginning so that it sets the tone for the rest of their journey as part of your team. So one way to do this is to create clear outlines of responsibilities. This is something that you need to write somewhere and have it in an SOP. Why? Because if that team member decides to leave later or for whatever reason, then you will easily have a new team member come in and everything is laid out for them their first day. So it's important to have these responsibilities clearly laid out, not just like quick points here and there, like we want you to do this, we expect you to work here, blah, blah, blah. Be a little bit more detailed than that. Not to be so micromanaging, but to say like, we expect you to have all of these specific tasks done at this time, like on this day of the week. Like something very specific so that they know exactly what you're looking for. Sometimes if you have really vague responsibilities or vague instructions or tasks, it's not going to be done as you want it to be. So you have to make sure that your communication style towards them is very clear. Try to be over clear, if you know what I mean by that. But what I mean by that is that you really want to go kind of like to the next level, to like really break everything down to the smallest little steps to really make sure they get it. And what this is going to do, it's going to help make sure everybody's on the same page and that everybody kind of knows and is following the path. Everybody knows exactly how you operate, how you want it to work, and go from there. Tip number 2 is to really make sure you have communication channels. All right, so you can do this on various types of different apps. For us at Team Marissa Romero, we like to use Slack, and it's an incredible tool where we can just focus on work. So for example, if you were to try to maybe blend in like work with like your personal stuff, for example, if you want to communicate with your team via WhatsApp or via email or via like different types of things that you also use your personal stuff for, it can get kind of confusing. So if you do use a separate entity like Slack or Discord or anything like that, then at least you have an area where it's focused on work and nothing will be buried under personal matters. Once you have the proper channel that you want to use, then make sure that you have the correct people in it. For example, in Slack, if you have different communications for different types of people in your team, like you have a marketing team, okay, make a channel for them. For your operations, make a channel for that. For people who need to be in your launch, okay, put it for that. So you can organize it more properly so that you know exactly where everything is going. If it is ever a time where you need to talk to someone about something that's happening in your channel, try to avoid talking to them just one-on-one and try to talk to them in one of those channels where everybody can see it. Why? So that everybody knows what's going on. We can all hold each other accountable. It makes it much easier so that you can move forward and figure out everything that needs to be done, and there's nothing lost in miscommunication. That is really important. We do that sometimes at Team Marissa Romero. There will be times when I need to give notes to our editors, but maybe I'm not as direct. Maybe I only send it to our editor, and then I thought that everybody else would know what I'm talking about. So when I talk about it in the channel with everyone, it can get confusing. So any kind of details that you need for just your channel, make sure it's in your channel where you're talking about those things. So make sure it's all organized that way and make sure everybody's on board.
And by the way, I'm speaking to those established YouTubers right now. If you are feeling completely overwhelmed and burnt out by the demands of your YouTube channel and the business that you have, I invite you to check out and download our 6-step blueprint that teaches you how to manage and scale your 6-figure thriving YouTube business in just half the time. Now, in this blueprint, I break down so many things, including how to work on your business so you can step into those CEO creator shoes, our signature YouTube workflow, and what it takes to really streamline your business and to work way less. Go ahead and check that out. It'll be the first link in the description below.
Another thing you can do to make sure you have strong communication with your team is to really make sure that you have kind of like an expectation of how quickly you want them to respond to you. So maybe like within 24 hours if possible, or maybe within 12 hours. You get to set the tone, obviously, it's your company, but that would be a fair range. Or if you expect to hear something every morning or by whatever time in the afternoon, make it clear. Set a clear expectation so that your team members know exactly what you need from them. Tip number 3 is to really be aware that this is remote work, meaning that it can feel very isolating for your team members, right? So you have to find a clever way to kind of like foster that team energy spirit, right? So having that sense of community and having that sense of like everybody truly is kind of like family in your team, then you do need to try to kind of emphasize that in certain ways. One way you can do that is by having like actual video calls, and those video calls, maybe you talk about what's new. That's much easier to do if you only have like 2 or 3 people in your team. Oh, like ask them like what's new with their family, what's new with their plans, what are their travel plans, what are their plans for Christmas, what are their plans for Easter, all of those things. Actually knowing what's going on with them, and if they're willing to share, then that's great. It's kind of like team bonding. Or there's plenty of things you can do together as a team that can make it more interesting and fun and have that bonding moment even though it's remotely. Like for example, if you go to like Airbnb experiences, there are so many people there, especially from during the pandemic, who have little shows and things they can do for you online, like magic shows, there's trivia, there's bingo, there's like all these fun things you can do. And so that would really like have a nice touch for your team members so that they feel like they're really included and part of the community. Another thing you can make sure you do as the owner, as the CEO, is to just check in on people individually. So if maybe someone has to take a leave from family matters, you can always just check in with them, see how they're doing, or even like try to create more opportunities for your team members. If you see them progressing really well, try to find areas where maybe they could even excel in your company. There's little things you can do to really just make sure that you are letting them know that you are aware of how hard they're working and that you appreciate them and how you see them in the future in your team. So there's lots of little ways. It is a matter of getting creative, but as long as you try to make an effort in it, your team members are going to appreciate it. All right, tip number 4 is to really establish a routine for your team members. Kind of going off of the first point where I talked about making sure you have set expectations and responsibilities from day one. It is important that in your day-to-day with your team members, you've established a routine so that maybe they know exactly when to hear from you. Maybe they know exactly how your routine works so that they know how to communicate with you better. And one of these examples could be like telling your team members, hey, just so you know, I'm only checking my emails from like 8 a.m. to 9 o'clock every morning. Or if you need a response from me, like you'll get it at the end of the day. Like having those kinds of like little set times so that people know when they can hear from you, or if they have questions for you, when the appropriate time is to ask, because you don't want them to be asking you a million questions all day, every day, when you're trying to do other things. And then if you're that type of person who needs to like follow up immediately, try to set that boundary for yourself that, okay, I'm only going to be able to respond to this at the end of the day. So I'm going to set that clear expectation for my team members so that they know that if they need anything from me, it's going to be at the end of the day. You see what I mean? But establishing those boundaries, establishing those times, it's really going to create a strong structure in your routine, and it's really going to help everything flow so much better in your entire company and within your team members. The last tip, tip number 5, is to really make sure that you embrace flexibility. Of course, you know how you work, you know how you operate as the owner, but you cannot expect the same from the people that you're hiring on your team. You're gonna have to be flexible. There's gonna be times when someone's super ill and maybe someone else has to step up and take over what they're missing. Or there's gonna be times where you feel like you need to step up to the plate and start doing the things that someone else can't do immediately. So there's gonna be times that maybe the domino effect isn't working as you want it to in your company, and you just have to step in and get it done. Also keep in mind you need to be flexible with who you're hiring. So if you're hiring from around the world, if you have people that you want to hire in India, for example, then you have to be mindful of the time zones. You really want to make sure that you're giving them the space for them to work at the hours that they want to work. It would be kind of cruel to make someone work all night just because that is your daytime. So if it's something that's not urgent, or if it's something that can be flexible, then make it flexible. And also by embracing flexibility and understanding that life happens for some people, or that some people need more hours to do something or less hours, like all those things, being flexible for your team members is really gonna help them appreciate you more, and it's really gonna create that stronger bond, and it's gonna help them feel like they're more included and they have that structure and that routine in your company. It's gonna help them increase their productivity and their job satisfaction. There you have it. Those are the 5 tips I have that are really going to establish and make your dream team, your dream remote team, super successful, and it's going to work in wonders. All right, let's keep going. So if you're trying to figure out how you can build your dream team, but you don't know if you should outsource or if you should actually hire, I made an entire video about that. So check it out just over here. Are you struggling to keep up with all of the demands of a YouTube channel? Are you having a hard time being able to actually scale your YouTube business while you're